leave a like and subscribe.
March 1969. Ron and Reg Kray were found guilty of murder at the Old Bailey. Mr. Justice Melford Stevenson, sentencing them to life imprisonment, told them, "I'm not going to waste words on you. In my view, society has earned a rest from your activities, and I recommend that you be held for at least 30 years.
In the underworld, so-called, they were very much halfway down the pecking order. They were not East End gangsters, they were Bethnal Green gangsters, very, very local. They could never move outside that area without being told where to go. If they tried to flex their muscles outside their own little patch. On their own little patch, of course, they were pretty formidable.
The Krays were very big fish in a very small pond. There were other gangs in London when they were at their reign, just as big, some bigger and more clever than what they were.
It was a lot easier to run Bethnal Green 35 years ago, and there was only 15,000 people in Bethnal Green. Now there's 255,000 people, and half of them don't even speak English, and they wouldn't listen to the two tasty geezers who owned the snooker hall down the road, whoever they were.
The Krays started off as local thugs, hooligans, protection money, etc. They used the talents they had in violence.
They could both be very, very violent. Yeah. Ronnie was the more violent one, but Reggie was the worst one to upset. If Ron never had his medication, as he told me, he said, I would go mad. He said, you know, they're the only thing that really stopped me from going insane. He used to rant and lose his temper, and his face used to really distort. But Reggie was very calm. He'd done things very coldly, you know. If he was going to stab you, he'd just stab you.
I think where Ronnie would have killed in anger, Reggie would have killed in hate. I can remember someone coming into the club and Reggie Kray shoving a comb through their cheeks. Reggie had a long-tailed aluminium-type comb, steel comb, which he shoved through the man's cheeks, both cheeks, tied in a knot. They rolled him up in a carpet and took him out.
They weren't rough, really rough people. They were quite gentlemen, you know. It was only if you crossed their path the wrong way that you suffered. And Reggie had a big 8-inch hunting knife with a barbed edge on it, and he stuck it through Mickey Morris's arm, and obviously he screamed. I said, pack it up, because I said, you're going to have people run up the stairs. And Ronnie said, never mind about packing it up. He said, do it properly, Reg, do it properly. Put it up his guts, put it up his guts.
Violence begot violence. They knew it paid off. So, being twins, the Krays, everybody feared them.
They had what they called their regular pensions to collect. That was from, like, protection from clubs and gambling casinos and things like that. And then they had their fingers in a lot of other pies, like, you know, where they'd demand a little bit here and a little bit there off of people who had done naughty things but they couldn't really go to the police about, so they'd get money that way.
They would hear of the misdeeds of other young criminals in the East End, and they would want their pickings. They were known in the East End as thieves' ponces. That means that they steal off the thieves or take proceeds of their crimes.
I reckon they were on an average, like in the 60s, which was a lot of money, about 3,000 or 4,000 quid a week.
But the money wasn't ever going in and smashing a place up. It was already there. In actual fact, you went in, you had a cup of tea or a pint, you were made to feel quite at home. And any complaints, it was like the television repairman coming. people were looking forward to you coming. Because if they had any problems, they'd tell you the problems, you'd take them back to the Krays. And then the violent side of the Krays, or the people who carried out the violent side for the Krays, it would be passed on to them.
The Krays moved into London's prosperous West End. But their business techniques lacked sophistication.
I think the Krays in their West End of London were a fish out of water. So they couldn't hold the same kind of code of silence, the same kind of code of loyalty. They couldn't put pressure on people who were already paying other gangsters, if you like, or other organisations.
Seduced by glamour and glitz, the Krays adopted a high profile, mixing with the rich and famous. Judy Garland, Barbara Windsor and Ronnie Fraser, and boxing legends Joe Louis, along with politicians and lords of the realm.
Ronnie loved the glitterous showbiz life. When Judy Garland was here, they took her to one of the local pubs, and they had a piano going and that in the pub. And she said to Ronnie, Judy Garland, I'll do a song. So Ronnie went over to this old girl, and he said to her, do you know who that is over there, Annie? So she said, no. He said, it's Judy Garland. And she said to him, piss off. And he said, yeah, it's really Judy Garland. And she sang a couple of numbers in the pub.
People wanted to really know what the Krays were about. Was it true that they were sex with deep voices? Was it true that they were killers who had bodies under every motorway flyover in the UK? Was it true that they'd killed 20 or 30 or 40 or 50? How many bodies were around? Who knew?
When we all talk about the number of people the Krays killed, they didn't necessarily go out and kill these people themselves, but they got others in to do the jobs for them.
They had their own personal things, but they didn't go around smashing everybody up. Only the people they didn't like personally. The others was just business to them. And they'd send their lieutenants to do the violent side.
How many did Ron actually kill? Maybe a half a dozen. How many did Reg actually kill? Maybe 2 or 3, something like that. But how many did they have their members of the gang kill? It was a lot. All in all, they got rid of, I reckon, around 30 people.
After they were arrested, Ronnie wanted Albert Donahue to say that he killed Jack the Hat, and he wanted Ronnie R to say that he killed George Cornell. And they said they'd take the rap for all the long firms and all the other little cases of violence. Ronnie liked obedience, and he was very angry and annoyed when they wouldn't do it.
Reg Kray was what I would call a manipulator of people. He was a guy who usually got what he wanted, one way or another.
He had a lot of influences in the prison and on the outside, and many times Reg asked people and myself to follow prison officers and just let him know where they lived, what type of background these prison officers had, whether they had a family, children, so on. And then he would use that as intimidation for prison officers when he was on a visit, to turn a blind eye to any packages or any money or anything that shouldn't have been happening.
Could you please go and see someone and make sure that he doesn't call me a dirty, stinking killer? Because it's not true. I'm not a dirty, stinking killer. I may have been a killer, but I wasn't a dirty, stinking type. Could you please go and see him or ask someone, maybe he'd throw a name at me, to make sure that he doesn't say it again, please? Nicely, of course. And this happened.
Ron's mental stability had deteriorated. He was declared insane and sent to Broadmoor.
He was still organising things from inside Broadmoor, and the things that he used to wear and the people that things used to send me in with, I'd go and pick up 3 pure white silk shirts, beautiful Italian silk shirts, and take them into him. And he had a tailor called Barry Scott, come from Wembley, go into Broadmoor, stand him up, measure him up every 6 months for a silk Italian style suit. Crocodile shoes, £300 a pair.
He had access to lots and lots of dough. He had his bank accounts, his building society accounts. He was a little more, surprisingly, a little more shrewd than Reg in that respect.
I remember being called out one day to Broadmoor by the canteen man. I was with Charlie Kray at the time. We'd had a wonderful visit. He was never in a good mood with Charlie Kray, Ronnie. He'd tell him off and have a go at him at the table. But this particular afternoon it was good. As we left, the canteen man came out and said, "Charlie, can I talk to you for a moment?" Say, well, "What's the matter?" "It's about Ronnie's bill." "How can you have a bill? He used to drink 4 non-alcoholic lagers," which was, of course, all you were allowed in there. Barbican, their name was. "I'd have maybe 2 teas or 2 coffees. Charlie Kray would have 2 teas and 2 coffees. Well, his canteen bill is £900.
Now, we used to have the visits in a hall, and next to the hall was a shop. Now, I'm talking about a shop, not a little shop, something like Marks and Spencer's. In that shop was clothes, lighters, cigarettes, sweets, chocolates, no drink, no alcohol, nothing like that. Trainers. It was and a guy who run the shop, funny enough, his name was Reg. Ronnie was always in the shop buying lighters and get them engraved and send them to people. Christening mugs, he heard someone had a baby, he'd go in there and say, "Reg, would you send a christening mug and engrave it and put it on my account?" One day, I'd just come off a visit seeing Ron, and the guy who owned the shop, little Reg, got over, he said, "Jack," he said, "can I have a talk to you?" I said, "Certainly, Reg, what's about?" He said, "Would you like to come in my office, So, went in his office, sat down, he said, "I'm a bit concerned, Jack." I said, what's the matter, Reg? He said, "Ronnie's run a bill up of £7,000. I said, "Don't worry. He's going to get £500,000 shortly for the movie. He'll be paid." He went, "Oh, all right, Jack." And and going out the door, I said, "Oh, by the way, is he all right for his more credit?" He went, "Don't worry. He can have as much as he wants."
He was known in Broadmoor as the watchman. He used to ask his visitors, "Please, could you bring me in a watch?" And he didn't mean a penny ante watch, he meant an expensive watch.
And I'd go with the guy and he'd sit down. "Ronnie Kray, this is Joe. He'd like to meet you." Shake hands. The eyes used to light up like a kid in a factory of sweets. "Oh, I like that watch. Could you get me one like that?" To which, you see, any guy looking at Ronnie Kray, sitting there going to be there for 30 years with no hope of being free, would go, "Oh, hell, you can have it."
If you wore anything and then he liked it, you had to give him it. That was it. And when you think about it, doing 30 years, keep him happy we used to do it, because let's face it, he was doing 30 years, we weren't. So we get, and I had this beautiful coat on. He looked down, he went, "Oh, Jack," he said, "what a beautiful overcoat." And I knew he wanted it. I went, "Ronnie, I'll leave the coat at reception for you,
Reg Kray visited his brother every 6 months. The transport would be laid on. He'd have 2 or 3 or maybe 4 heavy guards going with him for the ride. Wherever Reg was, around the country, Parkhurst or whatever, he would have this 6-monthly visit to see his brother, where they could sit down quietly and discuss all their personal business.
One spring morn, Frank Fraser, Stephen Burkoff and myself popped down to Broadmoor. Stephen Burkoff was absolutely rigid with fear, I think, at this time. First question Ron said to me was, "Well, why doesn't Charlie come to see me? Charlie Richardson." Well, I said, "It's very difficult, Ron," I said, "for him to come and see you, isn't it? You shot George Cornell. Frank, who worked for Charlie, he was a good friend of Charlie's. Olive, George Cornell's wife, is still around in Peckham. What's he going to tell her if he bumps into her? Oh, I went down to see Ron last week, Ron Kray. I mean, he can't do it, can he? Let's be honest." To which Ron Kray replied, "Well, it's nothing personal, you see. In those days, what you've got to realise is, I shot George Cornell, but it wasn't personal." And Frank Fraser gave a classic reply to that. He said, "Well, in my book, Ron," he said, "shooting a man in the head and killing him," he said, "and blowing his brains over the bar of a pub is the most personal thing you can ever do to anyone. It's the most personal thing I've ever heard of." I think even now, the 3 are gone, to the great criminal empire in Skye. I think the bandwagon will continue to roll and roll and roll. It will expand, it will gain speed, people will come, they will feed off it and into it, and it will always, I think, remain a money spinner for all concerned. Long live the Krays. The Krays are dead, long live the Krays.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.
Leave a like and subscribe.